You may not know this, but I fucking love Warhammer, at least the universe of it anyway. I never had the patience to learn the rules or paint the models to an acceptable degree, but when it came to the books and codexes, I just couldn't get enough. Oh, and they also made some good video games as well.
The Warhammer franchise has certainly had its ups and downs. I am willing to admit that I didn't like Battle March or Fire Warrior much, but that was mostly because I wasn't into that kind of game at the time. But now I am. I ought to go back to them and give them an unbiased look. No, the games I loved were the sadly cancelled Wrath of Heroes, Space Marine to a degree, and Age of Reckoning. I didn't necessarily adore Dawn of War nor any of its expansions, but I liked it enough to buy the sequel, which is now my favourite in the entire IP.
I've no idea how people will react to that, seeing as this is just the old games going in a new direction. I mean, Dawn of War 2 tries to be a single-player pseudo-strategy game with squad combat mechanics, and surprisingly it does it really well.
And I do mean surprisingly, considering how it tells us narrative and probes deep into the lore of the factions and previous battles. And it's not just good because it has a lot to say and exploits the richness of the universe, but because it provides a new light to the armies you might not have been interested in before. I used to be a collector of the Ultramarines and I took great interest in Space Marine stories, but I've found a new respect for the Eldar, plus some interesting facts about the Tyranids and how they work. Oh, and there's the Orcs. I mean, who doesn't love the Orcs?
Yeah, we've done that joke already.
Dawn of War 2 continues its masturbation over the Blood Ravens by making them the protagonists again, when their training and recruiting planets are attacked by the Orcish hordes. The Green Menace, however, is being guided by the Eldar, who, and this isn't a spoiler, are manipulating the Greenskins into fighting a common foe. But in Warhammer, logic is a foreign concept. Rather than let the Eldar use the Orcs to destroy the Tyranids, which only wish to consume to prolong their existence, the Blood Ravens make a war on all fronts. As the Force Commander, it's the player's job to guide a squad of 4 units, the Commander included, to face off with countless billions. Unlike the previous game in its respective expansions, there's no base building or maintenance, and very few times is your mission to simply destroy the enemy HQ. Instead, players arrive on the scene in a drop pod and have to navigate the square map to deal with the different objectives. It's this that makes Dawn of War 2 my favourite video game of the series, that actually left beta. Like I said earlier, I never played the tabletop game, but from what I recall, this seems to be more like it than the previous strategy games. You start out with a selection of troops and must destroy the enemy zone, instead of regenerating troops after old losses. Not only does this make you feel more attached to your own troops, which play a huge part in DAO 2, but also forces the player to be careful with their troop movements. There's no masses of Imperial Guard to throw themselves willingly to their doom, meaning that you have to make do with what you've got. That's not to say that you're ill-equipped for the dangers ahead, as each squad type has its ups and downsides, plus different ways of gearing and leveling up. For example, just because 2 squads have guns doesn't necessarily mean that they're both equally as good as suppressive or focused fire, nor is a Dreadnought objectively better than a scout unit simply because it has more health and damage. Because of this, it's hard to choose a favourite unit. I mean, for melee, I love Squad Thaddeus for the ability to dive bomb targets and rend them with chainswords, yet I'm also a fan of Squad Avitus for its ability to lay down heavy fire and allow me to advance. Add to the amount of customization each squad has, and you can really find a style that suits you and the upcoming battle. Oh yeah, war gear plays a role in Dawn of War 2 as well. Not only can you outfit the Force Commander with either a two-handed weapon or a pistol and melee weapon, but you can also apply this to your squad. Hell, you can even give them Terminator armor later on, upgrade their equipment and increase their attributes to make them more powerful with each level. However, the war gear is not that exciting, at least until the max level anyway. The health bonuses are appreciated, as is the extra damage, but it's just flat out numbers for the most part. There's chances when you'll proc a knockback or increase the chance of suppressing a target, but you'll almost forget about it as you're playing. What also sucks about war gear is that whenever it drops in a match, it's too high level for my characters. That means that it gets outdated quickly or converted into XP, which, while helpful, is a bit of a waste. Plus, on the off chance I find an item that I can use, it might not even be an upgrade that's comparable to what I've already got. Still, this doesn't prevent me from enjoying the meat of the game, as regardless of what gear I have, the game's still fun to go through each time I choose a new mission. Your minimap tells you where you need to go, though I tend to get carried away and start liberating the war assets and rally points. And it's not a waste of time either. In fact, it can be really helpful if you need that specific buildings item like sentry turrets, landmines, or temporary invulnerability. Heck, the better guarded these things are, the more XP I can get from obliterating the Xenos defending it. This is easier said than done on harder difficulties, however, and if you're as pants at this game as I am, you may just want to go for the objectives and finish the levels. Even though you can't recuperate from losses easily doesn't mean the enemy suffers, as they can have spawn points dotted around the map, so soonest in, soonest out is a valid phase here. Missions normally include liberating particular zones, retrieving an item, or most commonly killing a key target. Nearly all of the missions end with a boss fight, but they're pretty poor in my opinion. I mean, fair play, they remind me of dungeon crawler bosses, which are usually cool, but in Dawn of War 2 they feel gimmicky and don't end the level in a satisfying way most of the time.
What? I'm not boss no more. Zog it.
The gameplay mixes third-person cover shooting with RTS elements, giving players a top-down view of the battlefield while also allowing for some nifty controls for your marines. You'll be expected to manage everything they do, as they're pretty crap at choosing targets once they've slain their current ones. Seeing as cover can be destroyed as well as appear in different forms, you'll be on the move constantly, and even if you secure a zone, you can't just sit there and wait for the enemy to come to you. The design of the maps and the placement of objectives is perfectly executed, so you're not just camping and exploiting the terrain. And when you're in a fight, it feels so gratifying to engage the enemy as well as take cautionary measures upon meeting an overwhelming foe. In spite of there being no impact or feedback from the controls, just seeing the balls to the wall, bullet storms and explosions makes the combat infinitely more enjoyable to both watch and command. During a fight, you're not just guiding troops but also using their signature abilities to enhance the combat. You won't get through with just auto-attacking, so lobbing grenades, teleporting into battles, taunting enemies and laying down suppressive fire is required to win the day. This kind of involvement I feel is missing from a fair few hybrids like Dawn of War 2. So you might be wondering, how does the mission affect the story in the Tyranid infestation? And here's the answer. By going on missions that are only available for a limited time, you can defend current war assets or liberate new ones, but the infestation adds a new dynamic difficulty setting to the game. See, if you ignore the Tyranid infestation, the bar at the bottom of the mission select screen will increase. When that happens, it indicates that any Tyranid missions you do will be harder. It's a neat system and encourages you to deal with the ever-growing threat of the carnivorous hive mind, but it takes some time before you notice it doing anything. So that's really it for the gameplay. I didn't get involved in the multiplayer because I didn't want to give a bad judgment because of my terrible skills, so if you want a review of that, I'd recommend checking out a different video. So now it's time to look at the visuals and the sound design. Dawn of War 2 looks stellar even today, 6 years after its initial release, and that's including everything: the character models, the terrain, the particle effects and the cutscenes. My only gripes would be the character models and the customization screen, and whenever there's rain it's just too damn hard to see my cursor in. But like I say, they're just gripes. As for the soundtrack, it's pretty good when I can hear it, but what I really liked was the amount of voice acting and effort that went into it. It's not World of Warcraft by any means, but you can tell that the characters of all races had a good time recording. Besides that, my feelings on the oral stuff are neutral.
Before we wrap up this video by purging a heretic, it's time to purify this review with my final thoughts.
This Dawn of War sequel is the best single player experience I've ever had with Warhammer 40,000, thanks to its combination of RTS and squad combat, plus a somewhat cheesy narrative to marry it all together. It didn't go overboard with any of its ideas and innovations, and I respect the story for keeping it between 4 factions rather than all of them. The lack of base building and damage to enemy structures may turn off some players, and I'm sure it could drive away existing Warhammer fans, but it's a nice alternative to strategy games as well as a great entry level one for those new to the genre. Heck, it was one of my first and I really appreciate the short and sweet single player campaign. The game's only made better by its expansions like Retribution and Chaos Rising, expanding the story of the factions you saw here. Not only that, but you can play as other factions in their own campaign in Retribution, whereas from what I can tell, Chaos Rising is more multiplayer oriented. If you like what you saw here, you may wish to check out Tom Clancy's End War, a game that I found to be somewhat comparable in that it's based around squad combat with RTS elements. Other than that, I've little to say. I look forward to playing the other expansion, and I look forward to seeing your thoughts on the series in the comments below.
It was nice to cover the first RTS, or rather hybrid RTS, on the channel, especially when it was based on Warhammer 40k. Now we will come back to this universe, especially Warhammer Fantasy, in the future, but what it'll be, will it be a strategy game, a MOBA, a third-person shooter, a first-person shooter? I don't know, we'll find out in the future. Until the next time, I'm Johnbonne, #1 source for number 2 games. Now, if you excuse me, I gotta go purge the chaos filth. Ta-ta for now.
Rain is mean!
Sorry about that, I just had to do that for one person, or rather a few people, old friends of mine at my old college. What's up everybody, it's Johnbonne here. Thank you ever so much for staying right until the end of the video, I really appreciate it. I also love it when you guys comment, like and subscribe to the channel for older and newer videos coming out every couple of weeks. The question of the day is, what is your favourite Warhammer 40,000 faction or army? Now, of course, that had to be the question of the day, wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it be? Or what's your favourite Warhammer? No, we'll do that another time. But if you don't have a favourite Warhammer 40,000 faction, maybe you have a least favourite. Or let me know your favourite faction in Warhammer, the Fantasy Battle or whatever. I can't really give you my favourites because I barely know any of them. I'd say Space Marines, but after playing Dawn of War 2, I kind of find they're a bit morally ambiguous or whatever. I kind of have a newfound respect for the Eldar. I don't know if they're like that in the tabletop game, we'll have to see. But yeah, let me know yours in the comments below. I'd love to get some insight, and also if you can recommend me some Warhammer books, like the actual books, not the codexes, the stories, that'd be really good because I'm trying to get back into reading. Like I've been reading Gotrek and Felix months ago, but I kind of just stopped for some reason. So yeah, recommend me some books, and I'll be getting into them, and it'll keep me busy. Until the next time, I'm Johnbonne, your #1 source for #2 games, and I'll see you later. Ta-ta for now.